Dylan Stewart from South Carolina. Have you watched him?
You can't miss him.
He's a freshman. I would draft Dylan Stewart in the top 10 this year.
The reason I do know who he is, in full transparency, I don't know a lot of freshmen in the country.
Right. I don't either.
My college depth is the guys that are eligible and the freaks. But he's a guy where the first time I ever saw him take a rep, right away looked him up. He's not even going to be eligible next summer.
Dude, he's not even eligible to drink a beer.
He's 18.
He's barely eligible to vote. He's hardly eligible to lay his life on the line for this country. Kentucky literally triple teamed him on one rep this past week, and he still got a pressure. He was going up against the right tackle, the tight end, and the running back on the right side, and he still recorded a pressure. The plays are so nuts, and if you guys have not seen them yet, please go watch them. I mean, they are stupid. Welcome to the opening bell of the NFL Stock Exchange podcast. I'm Trevor Sikkema. That is Connor Rogers, joining you from beautiful Cincinnati, Ohio hotel. Connor's in the same spot, but we're coming to you a little bit mobile here because we've the season's begun. The season's begun here. I'm in Cincinnati, back doing studio shows at PFF, so we got to make sure. A lot of you guys have been tweeting at me since I sent out like the content schedule at PFF. Folks, NFLSE rolls on. We're here to stay, baby. It ain't going anywhere. Connor, how you doing, my friend?
I'm great, dude. Fun, obviously, first NFL Sunday in the books as you and I sit here and record, and it was funny to watch that reaction. Everybody was like, "Oh, these new shows are awesome," but like, what? The pod's dead? Like, or when that one time over summer we didn't record for 2.5 weeks, and when we came back, all the comments were, "Oh God, they're back."
We thought we lost you.
Yeah, no, we just took a break. We're back and better than ever, man. We can't
lose you guys because, well, we're sickos too, so we're here to talk about it one way or the other. So like Connor said, NFL week 1, we're sitting here recording. It's Sunday evening, which means week 2 of college football is in the book. So we wanted to give a little bit of stock watch. You know, week 1 can get a little overreaction, but week 2, we got a couple of games under our belt. We can at least see a little bit of trends. Now, here on the Stock Watch episodes, we're going to talk about stock up, stock down, as that is true to the channel and true to the name. We're going to talk about a player that was probably a day 3 guy going into the season that could very well be playing their way into the top 50, a la like a Jaden Daniels. I mean, a Joe Burrow one. You know, those guys are obviously like the far end of the spectrum to be top 3 overall picks, but everybody always asks those questions. So we're going to be throwing out some names. It's like, hey, you know, this guy's kind of coming out of nowhere, and who knows? Maybe he'll end up being a top 10 pick. Maybe a Tyree Wilson is maybe a better example of that, because he went, 8? So he climbed all the way from being like a day 3 pick to number 8 overall, so maybe that's a little bit.
Yeah, even, you know, Devon Witherspoon.
Yeah, Witherspoon, I think, is probably the same way. You know, day 3 guy, climbed all the way in the top 10. So we're going to try to get ahead of it because we know that people love to ask those questions. And then we're always, on these episodes, going to try to give you a name to know, a new name that even throughout all of summer scouting, we did not mention yet. And we already have a handful of guys that we're going to be getting to over the next couple of weeks, but we'll probably make this a regular installment just so we can keep checking in on updating the big board, new prospects, everything, man. So you want to start off with some stock up, guys? I feel like that's probably a good way to do it.
Yeah, I think it's perfect. Especially, I like the way we structured this because it feels like that, you know, there's guys we have to talk about, right? Because they're just so noteworthy in the draft world. And then it's good for us to kind of force ourselves to bring new names into the show because shout out to our audience. Like, if you've listened all summer, you already have heard about the 140 names or whatever we've talked about so far. So you're here to hear about more players. So I guess I could start right there, Trevor. And like you said, we're going to get into some unique categories in a little bit, but this is a more broad, open structure. This guy, I haven't talked about this guy on the show, but he's not in my like new player category. Tyler Barron, the edge pass rusher for Miami, who is a transfer from Tennessee. He has 4 sacks through 2 games this year. He had 1 against Florida, 3 against Florida A&M. And I know some people will sit there and be like, okay, he absolutely demolished Florida A&M. But the traits on this guy really, really jump out. He's got long arms. He gets off the ball. I think he has a varied rush approach. This is somebody on a Miami team that looks like they are going to be really in a fight to win the ACC this year, just with the quarterback they have and all the talent they have. They have great, because of situations like this where they go get transfers and transfers that can play right away, and they look really, really good. Tyler Barron is someone to me that I'm really excited to watch because it felt like his last year at Tennessee, he was a solid player, right? His senior season in 2023, he had a career high 5 sacks. He was making tackles. He was out there playing. He was solid, but it feels like him and this Miami defense, already 4 sacks through 2 games. This is someone that should log double-digit sacks in his final college season, and maybe he's just figured it out. Because when you look at the body type, the long arms, and once again, his ability to be explosive off the football, cross the face of tackles, rush around the corner low, it's all there for him. And maybe he just needed the right opportunity. So I really, really have enjoyed these first 2 games from him. And he just kind of throws himself in the middle of this edge class real quickly.
Yeah, I was going to say, when we look at the edge class overall, Nick Gordon, I got as the top edge rusher in this class. And then you get into a couple of traitsy players, like really traitsy players with Michael Williams and Abdul Carter and James Pierce Jr. You can throw Princely Uman in there if you want to as well.
Who's been good.
Yeah, I think that he has been obviously showcasing just really good speed ability as an edge rusher. We've already seen that in the early parts of the season with him in Ole Miss, which is great because he's going to Ole Miss is going to start to play a little bit tougher of competition, and I would love to see if, is this going to maintain for Princely? Because it was able to at Florida. There was just really nobody else along the defensive line who could help him. So I'm interested to see if that looks even better with Ole Miss. But, you get a lot of these guys with a ton of traits, and Connor, it kind of feels like that sort of class, Scorin's a little bit more of sort of like an all-around edge rusher. Not to say that he doesn't have traits, but, he wins in a really all-around way, like a blend of speed and power. He's around 270 pounds. Like he's just he's just a bigger edge rusher, but he's winning with like a spin move, a cross chop, like all this kinds of stuff. And so he's much more of a technical rusher, but then you get even a little bit further down, and I'm looking at the big board. I think Jack Sawyer, Tui Maloau, those are sort of guys that are in the Nick Gordon conversation, but then a Jalen Walker, a Patrick Payton, like Danny Dennis Stutton from Penn State. Like these are guys who are total traitsy edge rushers. So if Barron is somebody else who's in the category, we might just have a edge rush class full of these high traits players. And I think if that's going to be the case, a lot of people are going to say, man, nobody in this edge class really knows what they're doing. But we have seen the NFL gravitate even in recent years. I mentioned Tyree Wilson already. I mean, Trayvon Walker, for goodness sake, jumped all the way up to number 1 overall just because those traits mean so much. So I think this is another name to bring to the table. I don't have him on the mock draft simulator right now because I haven't watched him yet, but now that you bring him up, I got to watch him. But just hearing what you're saying, another player to add to this list, it just feels like a very traitsy edge rush group that we've got building in 2025.
Exactly right, Trevor. And I wanted to get the right height and weight before I said that, so I didn't lead with that because I know he's listed for Tennessee at 6'5", 260. The official I have on him, he's about 6'4" and a half, 255. So he's probably playing at 260. He's big. Like he's
6'4",
filled
250. Can host the pod.
Can host the podcast.
If you ever need to go on vacation, like
Tyler Barron.
Tyler Barron, call him up.
He's got the seat for sure.
Yeah.
Big dude, really well built, really good athlete, and someone that, if you're asking, hey, where was he projected, before transferring to Miami, if he had declared last year, he's probably a late 5th rounder. And now you're, just looking at some potential grades that he has coming into the season. And if he goes 10 sacks and looks this good and goes to an all-star circuit and wins some one-on-ones, like you're probably looking at a 3rd round guy or a 2nd round guy.
Yeah. No, love it. Love it. Love the shout out there. So for my first stock up, this will be an interesting conversation here that I think we get to have. And it's one that you mentioned at the top of the show. We were going to have a couple of these that we just needed to bring up because it's national notoriety and it means a lot to the 2025 NFL draft class. But Quinn Ewers, man, quarterback out of Texas. We talked about Quinn Ewers when we went through our quarterback summer scouting. And some of Quinn's film last year is tough. Like he is still in 2023, that was 2023 season. He is still a ways away from really being that NFL type of quarterback. Now, you can see the flashes of the arm talent and everything like that, but the consistency just was not there for him, especially when it came to throwing intermediate and throwing deep. He just was not able to put the ball exactly where he needed to at the timing that he needed to put it there. this year through 2 games already. I understand it's Colorado State, but then he went in the big house and was able to do this a little bit. To me, Connor, he looks much more calm and confident in the pocket. His pocket management last year, I thought, was far from what it needed to be for him to be considered this top half of the first round, potential top 10 overall draft pick. And I think some people who listen to the show, the addicts, were like, whoa, we've heard that Quinn's going to be this first round guy. You guys don't even have him in like the first round category. And it was because of that. Just not being able to navigate pressure the right way, the footwork being a mess when pressure was there, and more specifically, when he had the opportunities to sort of navigate that pressure, yet keep his eyes down the field, he didn't really do that last year. He's doing that this year. And Michigan was a huge test for him because even though they ended up sort of running away with that game, Michigan's got a good D-line. We're talking about Mason Graham. We're talking about 2 great edge rushers as well, some speed at the linebacker spots, 2 good safeties, right? And so you've got to be able to navigate pressure within the pocket, but also be able to keep your eyes downfield to make some of those throws and figure out where the safeties are mid-play. Connor, Quinn did that really well last week. There's some accuracy issues still with him. He likes to play a little backyard ball, maybe a little bit too much still. But I was very impressed with his confidence and how there was no hesitation with how he moved up about the pocket and was able to keep his eyes downfield. So pocket management was a big issue I had with him the year before that it looks like he is remedying now. And now that I've seen that, we get to start to talk about some first-round traits and talents that he might have as a pure thrower. So now I think the conversation really starts to begin with Quinn Ewers and how high he could go in this draft.
It's a great call out by you. Quinn is, I liked him a lot more during the summer than I thought. I will say that, but I agree with you. There was some massive red flags on tape, especially throwing the ball down the field, the lack of accuracy, because how unorthodox he would kind of find himself in these situations where it's like, man, you're just not going to consistently throw the ball accurately by the way your lower half is crazy. Your upper body mechanics are not always the same and consistent. And this year, there was flashes. I thought there were flashes last year of him understanding, though, what the offense wanted to do. Mm-hmm. And I feel like a full offseason coming into this year now, it's all there. He understands exactly what the offense wants to do. He understands what coverages are being thrown at him and how to throw against them and how to play point guard and the unique ways he could distribute the ball, how quickly the ball gets out, just to let his guys get catch and run opportunities. The play that was called back, that was a touchdown throw. Like that was a really nice throw out of structure a little bit. So
wild, right. a little bit of a wild man throw, but I mean, that's sort of the Quinn Ewers experience, and he gave you a better version of that there.
It is. And, you're right that this class, we weren't really waving the flag for round 1 quarterbacks this summer. I think we were kind of looking at Carson Beck and saying, hey, he's got a shot. I know you were higher on the potential of Weigman, and I was higher on the potential of him too, and he looks further away. But I had Quinn and then Shadur in this bucket at QB2 and QB3 where I was going to watch them neck and neck this year and go, are both of these guys going to play themselves into the first round? And I don't think either's done that yet, but I think Quinn has taken the proper steps of how confidently he's operating the offense. And I want to give Quinn Ewers credit for something that people aren't talking about enough. Can you imagine being the guy playing in front of Arch Manning?
Yeah.
I think the composure to sit there and not get rattled, knowing that every time you throw an interception, people are going to be chanting for the next Manning to take your job. I honestly thought there was a world where Quinn Ewers, after he didn't enter the draft last year, I'm like, is he going to transfer and be one of the best transfer quarterbacks on the market? This seems kind of unprecedented, but instead he kept kind of his feet on the ground and said, listen, I know this offense. I'm ready to lead this team. And the results have been really, really good early in the season.
No, I think that it's a really good point by you is that not only does he seem to be playing better under pressure, there is more pressure on him this year than even there was last year because of some of the outside circumstances that you mentioned. So, those things go into it. I really do believe that. And when NFL teams look at Quinn Ewers, I wonder if there was maybe just a, I don't mean for this to come off as harsh, but he's a young quarterback. He's a young... Yeah. And I think that this word also sounds a little bit harsh, but hot shot quarterback, 5-star coming out of high school. I mean,
The long blonde hair.
Yeah, I mean, like this dude he was the crown jewel as the quarterback of that recruiting class. And I wonder if the NFL kind of looked at him and some of the immaturity that he still had in his game last year and wondered like, hey, this guy just isn't there yet. Is this guy just coasting off of a top recruiting rating? And this year, I think his play shows the demeanor and the mentality of somebody who is approaching it at a more mature level. And I want to give him credit for that. I really do. So,
and key point, you talked about him playing against a good Michigan team. I thought Kelvin Banks was really good this week, by the way. I thought he had a good performance against a team that like, hey, I want to see him against the best. And I thought he was good.
I think that's a really good shout out. You know, so a specific example I'll get to with Quinn is you remember that slant pass that he threw to A.D. Mitchell right at the beginning of the Oklahoma game last year where he kind of like double clutched it and it was a horrendous throw and it got picked because the corner was reading it the whole way. And it's almost like Quinn like watched the corner read it and he goes, well, I'm still supposed to throw this ball.
I have to throw this.
So I'm going to throw this ball. And, you know, I don't want to jinx him. This is going to suck if I jinx him and he does this next week. But I don't think he's going to do that anymore. Like, I think those throws are kind of out of his system. Now, every quarterback will take a chance on a slant because it's such a timing thing and you're going to take a chance on it. And a PBU and interception, that could always be the result. But the way that throw was a failure for him, where the feet stopped moving, he double clutched, he hesitated, and then he tried to make up for it because he's like, nah, I got a big arm, I'm going for it. I don't think that runs through his mind anymore. And I think that is a visible maturity in his game that we've already seen through 2 games, and I hope that it continues. I really do, because I think he can be a fun quarterback prospect.
Totally with you. We'll keep our eye on Quinn Ewers and see how, you know, if he can keep on this trajectory that he's found himself on.
It's certainly a wide open quarterback class.
Oh,
it really feels like it.
The NFL's just begging somebody to take the reins.
Yeah.
And honestly, folks, there's a world where, you know, you and I were texting about this a little bit. Sometimes it doesn't happen. It's, you know, there is a world, like we talk about how Kenny Pickett was taken in the first round that year, but everybody kind of looked at each other that year and like, there's just not a guy. You know, some people believed in Malik Willis's traits. Some people like things about Desmond Ridder. Some people like things about Pickett and his potential floor. And at the end of the day, it just, you know, it didn't look like there was a guy in that group, that specific group. So
I think there's more high-end talent in this class than there was in 2022.
Like the traits,
yes,
maybe.
I think there are more traits, but will they be as developed as they need to be come draft time? We'll see. Who's next on your list for a stock up? Who we do next?
And far and away, Brock Purdy's the best quarterback in that class. It's amazing. Like far and away, the best quarterback in that class.
Incredible.
Next up on my list is Tommi Hill, the corner from Nebraska that had maybe the biggest moment of the weekend, or one of the biggest moments of the weekend with the picks. When you get a pick six.
Speaking of double clutching a throw to the sideline.
And I have to throw this. Oh man. So Tommi Hill will get the attention for the pick six off of Shadur. But I thought the rest of this game deserves just as much attention. And why I say that is they went after him. I don't know if it was, I mean, he drew a lot of Travis Hunter, so naturally you're going to see the ball come your way.
Right, yeah.
Tommi Hill, just to recap real quickly, he was a summer scouting guy. I had him as, I want to say corner 9. I'll just double check this real quick. Yeah, corner 9. He's a former wide receiver. He's 6 feet tall. He's big, explosive corner for Nebraska, but definitely raw coming into the year. He gets the pick six off of Shadur. That's the first time he's targeted in this game. Trevor, he was targeted 7 more times in this game after that. And he did give up 6 catches, but when you go watch them, 2 were screens. Another one was where he peeled off his man and crashed back down to the flat to make a really nice tackle. He's the nearest defender, but he's not covering the open guy in the flat. So I don't really count that as surrendering a catch, or not a catch that I personally care about.
Right.
So that's 3 of the 7. And the other one, it's like some hitches. He didn't give up any big plays, is the point. He didn't give up any big plays. He tackles. He's explosive. Nebraska, man, let's call it what it is. They built that team in the trenches that was on a totally different universe than Colorado, where
no doubt.
they demolished that transfer portal Colorado offensive line. But one way, and Colorado did realize this, Shadur and Pat Shurmur and their offense, they realized, okay, we are not going to survive by these deep drops and dropping back and extending plays. And that's a problem that Shadur has. He does hold the ball a long time. We are going to have to get the quick game going to Travis Hunter. And I thought Tommi Hill did a really, really good job neutralizing their quick game as a tackling corner and a cover corner.
And I think that there's, 83.7 coverage grade this past week is fantastic. Obviously, it gets boosted a lot because he had a pick six, but
right.
I think that to your point, like not yielding more than what you need to, right? We talk about at the cornerback position all the time. It's sort of, it's baseball. It's a batting average. You're going to fail most of the time. You're going to give up catches. It's just about those opportunities where you have a chance to make the play. Can you get on base, if you will? And I think that that's something that Tommi Hill has shown that he could do really well. And I think he's got an opportunity to really rise in this cornerback class, right? I think that, somebody who's been a little bit disappointing so far, the two Virginia Tech corners that we liked, Mansour Delane's kind of taken his lumps a little bit this season. But overall, I went back and I watched his film because I wondered if he was going to be like a stock down kind of a candidate for me. But I watched it and yeah, could he play better? Yes, but I think there's other opportunities where he still played well as a whole. Corner is another one of those positions, sort of like offensive line, where you could play 50 snaps in a game. You end up giving up 3 big catches. You lock them down for the other 47. Like, it's just people are going to remember the 3 catches. And sometimes that's sort of how it is. And I felt like that's how it was a little bit with Mansour Delane. So not super low on him, but I think that Tommi Hill's got a chance to rise. I mean, I had him in the 90s to start the year on the PFF big board, but he has played very well already this season to where I kind of thought that he would be maybe a late day 2 player. He seems to be rising a little bit and showing that he's got more NFL potential than I was even giving him credit for at the beginning of the season. My next stock up guy, I want to talk about USC's quarterback, Miller Moss, who we did not go over when we did the quarterback episode. So he was not on the PFF big board for the mock draft simulator when the season began.
Well, he's been waiting to play, to be fair.
He has
tough to evaluate a guy that doesn't play.
Right. We really had no way that we were going to evaluate this player. But,
I didn't go to the USC spring game. Probably should make that a business expense.
I was going to say, from New York?
Yeah.
Just
Go to the USC spring game.
It's
go to
tax
Hermosa
write-off.
Beach.
It's a tax write-off.
I will be doing this next year. I don't know who's... yeah, it's just tax write-off. That's all it is. No one's expensing me to go to this.
Look, I did...
USC wouldn't even let me in.
I did... I did like him though. I really did. I went back.
I checked this,
and I watched the LSU game, the game that was a really big back and forth between him and Garrett Nussmeier, and I thought that was a good NFL showing for both of those quarterbacks. But very clearly, when you look at it, yes, they both passed for over 300 yards. Yes, the game was kind of down to the wire. Very clearly, Miller Moss had the better individual performance, had an elite PFF passing grade that night. He had 5 big-time throws compared to Garrett Nussmeier's 1 big-time throw. So obviously that's going to go much, much more in his favor. Now, Moss, he's... What recruit was he? He was a 4-star recruit. So he's from California. He was a 4-star recruit, redshirted that 2021 year, and then he just backed up Caleb Williams the other 2 seasons. He ended up graduating college. I found this in 2 years. So he's already like in a master's program. That's how he's
probably a doctor by now.
Yeah, they're called doctors.
He graduated college in 2 years?
Yeah, that's what it says. Graduated in 2 years.
Wildly impressive.
Now, I think it was USC's player bio that says it. So maybe they're over exaggerating a little bit.
It's like what's his face? The Old Dominion linebackers tackles.
Oh, Jason was it Henderson? Is that his
Henderson?
name?
He's got like 75 tackles a game at home. Shout out to him.
Miller Moss got 3 degrees in 2 years.
All right, on the homepage.
So he's listed at 6'2", 205 pounds, which smaller for the quarterback position. 32nd percentile in height, 7th percentile in weight. Something that you watch even in a great game like the LSU game. He does not have like a physically imposing arm. Like this is not somebody that's striking fear into secondaries like Anthony Richardson or Josh Allen or, it's just, it's not that caliber. And it's even not to the caliber of some of the better arm talents that we have in this class, right? Like Quinn Ewers is somebody who's who comes to mind is like, wow, okay, like all the arm talent in the world. I think that this is somebody that you're obviously seeing an NFL future with because of how he could spin it. But what Miller Moss does is he analyzes the game at a really high level, but there's so much pinpoint accuracy from him already, which is, you could say like, oh man, all that time like waiting has paid off. Sometimes it's really hard to look that good when you don't have a lot of regular snaps, right?
Yeah.
And I was really impressed with him because I think the things that he could control while being a backup for 3 years, throwing motion, footwork, release. Every time you are releasing the football when you are in practice, is it repeatable? Is it going to the same spot? Is the follow through the exact same? Are you putting a tight spiral on it? Is it not wobbling on you so you're missing the accuracy or you're missing the throwing window? Are the feet exactly where they should be? Are you married all the way up from your footwork through your shoulders and your throwing motion? And he is. This guy's got a pretty release, man. He does. He makes it look really easy. And because of that, that's how you saw some sick accuracy and true ball placement throws from him against LSU. There were two passes up the seam. I don't think they were quite like slot phase, but they were sort of slot reps where you're going up the middle, you're going up the seam, and he just layers it in between the defender that is trailing and the safety that's over the top, and it's like, oh, chef kiss, that is beauty. And he did it multiple times in that game. Fearless. I love the way that he approached the game. I cannot wait to watch him throughout this season because USC is going to continue to have some tough tests. And I want to make sure that the qualities of true ball placement are something that remain for him throughout this season, because if they do, then we might be talking about a guy who has 1 year of college starting experience who might actually declare for the NFL draft. But if it's a little bit spotty, well, then it's hard to look at Miller Moss, who I already mentioned will not win the off the bus test with the eye test of just looking him on the sideline. He's not going to win it in how he wows you with his arm. But if he can be this assassin with his accuracy, we can talk about somebody for 2025. So I know a lot of people wanted to bring him up. I know a lot of people shouted him out in the comments and tweeted at us and all that kinds of stuff. So I wanted to bring him up. Those are my first initial thoughts of him when I watched that first game that he played. I liked what I saw. I cannot wait to watch more, but I do think that he is naturally a stock-up candidate because of the potential that I saw in it.
Yeah, man. It's been awesome to watch him get his chance this year, because that's kind of a lost art in the sport right now, is the guy that was a good recruit and red shirts and then is waiting beyond the red shirt to play. And it brings up a fascinating conversation of the benefits of watching, learning, waiting in the same offense.
Mm-hmm.
But you brought up a great point, Trevor, not playing. It's hard when you're not getting enough reps, but he's taking advantage of all of the mental, benefits he's gotten while waiting, and clearly mechanically and just how smooth things look and how mentally prepared it looks is kind of translated to help the physical aspect. It's been benefiting him big time this year. So He's been one of the standout quarterbacks in the country so far. There's no way around it.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. Who's your third stock up guy?
Third stock up guy for me is Jonah Coleman, the running back now at Washington. He was at Arizona. What'd you say?
He's been eaten.
Yeah. I mean, he is a 5'9", 230-pound running back. So he was at Arizona. He was very good for Arizona last year in a more limited role. When Jedd Fisch took the Washington job from Arizona, he brought Jonah Coleman with him. And that's one of the smartest things so far that Jedd Fisch did, because Coleman looks awesome. I mean, you just look at, number one, the body type. It's not a sloppy 230. He is a rocked up 230 pounds. He now has over 100 rushing yards in both games, 13 missed tackles forced combined in both those games. The thick build, he's a power runner, especially with the stiff arm at the third level of the field, but he has really good feet. There's so many plays. I did a tape breakdown of him after week 1 for NBC, where the defensive line started to kind of overcommit to one side to break through against him, and he could stop after the handoff and change directions and cut back the other way and make people miss in a phone booth. But then it's, I'm at the third level now. Okay, I'm going to stiff arm the safety, or I'm going to let two guys try to jump on my back and I can rumble forward for another 5 or 6 yards. it's kind of a complete looking running back to me, is what it looks like. Coleman's been as advertised, and he's a big time player that I know it's a loaded running back class, but if he has the kind of year that he's on pace for already, he's gonna shake things up in that group.
Yeah, I mean, he has definitely been fun to watch. We talked about him a little bit during summer scouting. He was outside of my top 10 when it came to running backs, but this is somebody who I just looked it up. We do track how often there's sort of a change in direction for running backs, change of the point of attack. And 7.1% he's able to get on that change of direction, which is not too bad for a guy who likes to go north to south a lot. Some of these backs, they're just like singular focused on exactly where they're supposed to go in their landmarks. But 7.1%, that's not too bad, especially when guys are kind of diving to his feet. He's able to be a little bit nimble, and for a bigger back, I think that's good. So Coleman, definitely a good shout out there. Dude, the two guys who are leading the country right now, two summer scouting darlings, Connor Monangai from Rutgers, and then obviously Ashton Jeanty from Boise State. Brother, Jeanty's averaging 229 yards a game.
It's insane.
He's got over 400 rushing yards.
They gave Oregon a scare when everybody was asleep.
Yeah, they did.
They gave Oregon a really, really big scare. And a lot of it is on the back of Jeanty, right?
Dude, unbelievable. So through 2 games, he's already got 22 missed tackles forced. And per carry average, that's 0.49, which if you've been listening to this podcast for the last couple of years, you've heard us bring this up before. Trey Benson, his sophomore year, the year before his draft eligible year, going into that season, he had a 0.51, which was like insane. And we were like, yo, this dude's incredible. Obviously, it was a little bit lower his final draft eligible year, but some of the best numbers that we have seen, like Bijan Robinson, Trevor Etienne, Javonte Williams, they had 0.42 was their missed tackles forced per attempt, and Jeanty right now is 0.49. So this would be a historic pace for the young man. I think something that is worth noting is he I'm sorry. I just saw 6.1 yards after contact.
He's like almost getting a first down after he gets hit.
Animal. It's unbelievable.
It's really insane.
That's
really
absolutely crazy. Holy shit. Okay. So the receiving part of his game, right? Because when you talk about having true value, and I think he's number 12 on the PFF big board right now, for a running back to be able to go in the first round and us to be able to justify it, you've got to bring something to the passing game as well, because the passing game, it's just worth more when it comes to scoring points than running. I'm not saying that running the ball doesn't matter and it's not important, and I think that it absolutely matters. But for a back to be that valuable and hold that kind of value above his peers, you really got to be able to bring elite level ability as both a receiver and a runner. Running, very obvious. Jeanty's got it down this year. Receiving, he's only got 12 receiving yards this year, and that's on 5 receptions over the last 2 games combined. So some people might be looking at this and like, all right, well, he's just, a really special runner. Well, he had an elite 91.6 receiving grade last year and almost had 600 receiving yards. So we've seen it from him before. We're just not seeing it this second. So I want people to remember that if they've got, PFF premium subscription and they're looking at his receiving numbers and they're like, no, he's not bringing anything to the passing game. He can bring something to the passing game. He just hasn't yet this season. Just wait on it. Last guy that I want to bring up is a stock up player. Guy that I'll admit you liked him a lot more than I did during summer scouting, and okay. I gotta give him his props right now. Jay Higgins, linebacker from Iowa.
I love him.
You were a big fan of Jay Higgins, and when I looked at him, I sort of looked at his measurables, which hold on, I had it up here a second.
Oh, none of it makes sense. He's about 6 feet tall. What, 225 pounds?
6 feet tall, 228 pounds is what they have him listed at. Okay, if he were to measure in it exactly what they have him listed at, that's 12th percentile and 10th percentile for an off-ball linebacker. I just have a hard time really buying into those guys that don't have the length, the size to be able to take up a lot of room, force more incompletions in coverage, all that kinds of stuff. I appreciated Higgins' IQ when I watched him during summer scouting. But it really feels like the veteran, who's now a 5th-year player, has just taken that to the next level. mean, he had an interception. I believe it was this past week. Maybe it was the week before. Maybe I was watching the games in reverse. But he's already got an interception this season. I think he's got an elite coverage grade on the season. And I watched some of his stuff back. The movements of him, he knows where the ball is going. He knows where the ball is going before it's snapped. And you can see it this year even more so than last year. And last year I noted that. Like I gave him a pretty high overall processing score. This year it is at an even higher level. So Higgins I think is going to be somebody who's a fan favorite because sort of like Jeremiah Trotter Jr. last year, he just sees the game very, very well. There will be physical deficiencies for him, but in an area of his scouting report that I thought really couldn't get higher, he was already seeing the game well. He is seeing it higher. He has ascended even further in these first two games, and he is just a total centerpiece for that defense. He is constantly communicating with his teammates, and again, his movement skills, his flow to the ball, it is one step quite literally ahead of everybody else. So Jay Higgins for Iowa's defense, somebody that might not be physically imposing enough to be a top 50, maybe even top 75 pick, but a damn good football player and one I think that people are going to like in the mid to depth pieces of this draft.
That's what it comes down to. I mean, once again, somebody I really, really enjoyed talking to at Big Ten Media. He's the glue of the middle of the defense. He is so hyper aware that he is physically limited in comparison, so he has to go above and beyond all of those intangibles that he has in terms of just seeing every play. It's really a sixth sense how he can see plays develop and get his teammates in the right places and have everybody ready pre-snap and be such a perfect tackler. I mean, perfect tackler. He doesn't have the greatest, the best play speed. Like you said, Trevor, he doesn't have the greatest raw measurables and skills, but when you are fundamentally perfect and more often than not, the smartest guy on the football field, you're going to be able to play and he'll continue to be overlooked. I mean, he told me, because I was like, man, like you've been at this program, you've stuck by this program on and on and on. He's like, this is the program that gave a barely 6 feet tall linebacker a chance. No one else would. And I was like, well, that's like really hyper aware of who you are. Mm-hmm. So, and honestly, those guys are the ones that make it because when everything's gone perfect for so long, the older you get, it's harder to get punched in the mouth and readjust. But when nothing has gone perfect and you've always had to kind of scratch and claw, you just know it's the big adversity checkbox in scouting. That's what they call it.
Yep. I love it. So. I have two more quick stock up shout outs before we kind of move on here. One of them is the name that this podcast knows from, I think, the very first year we started doing this show.
Oh, baby. That's hard to do.
Jalen Catalon, baby.
Let's go. We're
back.
So back.
He's back.
So
he
back.
Is so back. So
we are back.
So he's not at Arkansas anymore. He's not at Texas anymore. He is at UNLV. And Connor, 2 games into the season.
Vegas.
2 games into the season, elite 90.1 PFF grade. He's already got an interception this season, 89.8 coverage grade. Jalen Catalon is so back, brother. He's so back. We're in. We're back in. We have to be. And then the other player that I wanted to shout out, Dylan Stewart from South Carolina. Have you watched him at all?
He's a freshman.
He's a freshman, and I know people are probably listening.
You can't miss him,
brother.
You can't miss him.
I would draft Dylan Stewart. No
tomorrow.
Hyperbole. I would draft Dylan Stewart in the top 10 this year.
It doesn't even make sense the way he moves on the field at his size.
That
doesn't even make sense.
That first game that they played against Old Dominion, I was like, this. You could be showing me a Pro Bowl reps of an NFL player right now.
So when I saw him, the reason I do know who he is, in full transparency, I don't know a lot of freshmen in the country.
Right. I don't either.
I do the draft. I mostly do NFL throughout the week. I know a lot of it's for you. So my college depth is the guys that are eligible and the freaks. But he's a guy where the first time I ever saw him take a rep off the edge, I right away looked him up. I'm like, there's just no way there's no way this guy could be eligible because how do you miss someone like this? And I'm like, he's not even going to be eligible next summer.
Dude, he's not even eligible to drink a beer.
He's 18.
He's barely eligible to vote.
Right. He can barely get cigarettes or chewing tobacco.
He's hardly eligible to lay his life on the line for this country.
It's like that point. At that point.
Right.
But yeah, good call. I mean, unreal.
Dude,
unreal.
He's insane. Over 20% pass rush win percentage, over 9 pressures already through 2 games. He's already got 3 sacks. Kentucky literally triple teamed him on 1 rep this past week, and he still got a pressure. He was going up against the right tackle, the tight end, and the running back on the right side, and he still recorded a pressure. This kid's stupid good. He was a top 20 player in the country. He was a 5-star. Shane Beamer got a good one. So I just wanted to shout out Dylan Stewart. We're 2 years away from talking to him about him as a draft perspective, but the plays are so nuts. And if you guys have not seen them yet, please go watch them. I mean, they are stupid.
Yeah,
and it's a 6'5", 250-pound, 18-year-old pass rusher who, once again, I would draft in the top 10 this weekend. Anyways, touchdowns, tutties, taking them to the house, in for 6, whatever you want to call a touchdown. One thing is for sure. Touchdowns matter more at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. On the ground, in the air, special teams, defense, we don't care how they score them. We just want to bet on touchdowns. And DraftKings Sportsbook is the #1 place to bet on touchdowns. If you're ready to place your first touchdown bet, it's very easy. Try betting on something simple. He has something coming up this weekend. I don't know. Off the top of my head, let me just think. Oh, Mike Evans scored 2 of those bad boys. They're going up against the Detroit Lions in week 2. Why not throw some cheese on the line? Maybe make that happen. I don't know. He's probably going to score a couple more this season. Go to DraftKings Sportsbook app. Make your bets today. It's very simple to do. New DraftKings customers, they bet just $5 on, and you get $250 in bonus bets instantly. Plus, you get 1 month of NFL Plus premium on them. So all you got to do, that's all you got to do for it. Just go pick a guy. Hey, I think this guy's going to score a touchdown. Boom. Put $5 on the line. You get $250 instantly in bonus bets. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use the promo code PFF. That's promo code PFF for the new customers to get $250 in bonus bets when they bet just $5, and you get a month of NFL Plus premium on them. The offer will end September 19th, only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. If you got a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, it is 877-8-HOPE-NY, or just text HOPE-NY. In Connecticut, help is available for problems with gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 plus age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction, void in Ontario, Oregon, and in New Hampshire. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and resources, visit dkng.com/FTBALL. NFL Plus premium offers are only available to new and former NFL Plus subscribers. Additional NFL Plus free premium terms are at NFL.com/terms. And the football season is finally upon us. We've already got some games underway. Week 1, almost already in the books as we were recording this podcast. Definitely been a long and interesting off season. And this season, as the year goes on, we're going to be listening to a new podcast called The Offensive Line with Annie Agar. Annie is an NFL insider. You might know her from her uncomfortable team meetings on social media. The Offensive Line with Annie kicks it back with NFL stars, celeb, super fans throughout the season, and they'll unpack all the weekly lines, the odds, the spreads, all that good stuff with plenty of sharp wit and banter that you absolutely love. This podcast is packed with humor. It's a must listen to keep up with NFL news and culture. Follow The Offensive Line on the Wondery app or wherever you guys get your podcasts. You can also access bonus episodes and listen ad-free right now by joining the Wondery Plus app. All right, so let's get into some new categories here for the show. Connor, I like these because I'm not just excited to hear your categories, but also from the people as well. And as people watch college football, maybe they can watch a guy and say, hey, that's a good candidate for this. I'm going to go watch a show. I'm going to comment on the show. I'm going to get in on the show. That's what we really want to do here. But let me know who your player is, who you think could go from being a day 3 guy to the top 50 about 8 months from now.
Before I do that, while you were doing the ads, I was thinking how we just glossed over that after years of things not going right, Jalen Catalon chose to take his talents to Las Vegas to get his career back on track. You ever think about that?
Bet on himself, literally. Quite literally.
Bet on himself. You got to be an absolute madman to go, man, things haven't gone right for me the last couple stops, injuries. I'm going to go to Las Vegas and figure it out.
Las Vegas.
Oh man, but hey, it's working.
Hey, it's a numbers game. He's playing the odds. It's just like roulette, baby. If it's been black 6 spins in a row, you bet your ass I'm betting on red.
Yep. Keep it rolling, Jalen Catalon. All right, so my player that from summer scouting, kind of a day 3 guy, but with my little overreaction here after a couple of games, could play his way into day 2 right now. Ty Felton, the wide receiver from Maryland.
Okay.
He has 324 receiving yards in 2 games.
What?
Three touchdowns, 14 first downs.
What about being drunk at the wheel? What? I didn't know any of this.
So they kicked the crap out of UConn the first week, but against Michigan State, he had another big day. I mean, he has 178 yards against UConn, 146 against Michigan State. He's caught 3 touchdowns. He had 8 first downs against Michigan State. Wow. Through the 2 games, he's got over a 92 grade in the PFF grading system. He's caught 18 of his 24 targets. Felton can fly. He was wide receiver 19 for me at a summer scouting because he can run. There's no denying that. And his big plays are awesome. The biggest thing for Felton is finding consistency. 6'1", 181 pounds. I wrote the play strength needs to improve. He had a couple fumbles in 2023. He wasn't winning in contested catch situations at all. He was 4 of 16 last year. He gets bullied around. But he's quick off the line of scrimmage. He's shifty through his routes. He understands how to eat up zone. Felton looks really, really good right now. And listen, he's not making plays in contested situations. He's not even getting those opportunities, but he's just open. He's got 9 explosive plays already. So at the end of the day in the NFL, if you can run, you already got a head start at this position. And Felton just looks really good tracking the ball in. He has really good spatial awareness. I've been really impressed with him and just think that, listen, there's some talent in this wide receiver class, but when you can get over the top of the defense the way he does and find the football the way he is right now, the tracking the Michigan State game was A+. I don't want to say slept on Felton, but I'm really happy to see so much improvement so quickly in his game, knowing the guys that they lost at this position. And another guy I got to talk to at Big Ten Media Days, and I talked to his coach, Mike Loxley. Like, there was an awareness, not only that they were ready for him to step up as a leader, but ready to step up in a big way in terms of that target share. And he's just running away with this right now.
That's look, if you can win deep, the NFL is going to give you a shot. Like, if you are somebody who can bring in explosive deep down the field, I think deep tracking, like you mentioned, is an underrated part of these guys who have speed. It's not just being able to get down the field. It's
you got to find the ball.
Right, you got to find the football, 100%. Yeah. So, love the shout out, man. I mean, shoot, day 3 for a player like that, day 3 to top 50 would be a big jump. But again, like,
it'd be huge.
If you can win deep, that's a massive part of the game that every single offensive coordinator is trying to unlock. So, we've seen wide receivers get drafted really high on that potential before. We could definitely see it again. So I was in College Station in Texas this past weekend.
Hell yeah.
And I got to watch Texas A&M in person. And the guys that I was kind of going to see, obviously wanted to see Connor Wigman in person, wanted to see Nick Scorton, wanted to see Shamar Turner, guys like that. But there was another guy that really caught my eye. And as I was sort of talking to people around the Texas A&M program, it was a name that continued to come up. Shamar Stewart. So not Shamar Turner, Shamar Stewart, another defensive lineman for Texas A&M who I did not really know much about. I had heard about him from recruiting because I remember that he was a top recruit. He was a top 10 recruit in the 2022 class. So he's just a true junior this year. They have him listed at 6'6", 290 pounds. And buddy, he looks it. This dude's huge. Just standing next to Texas A&M's defensive line on the field, I mean, all of these guys are big, but Shamar Stewart in particular is just, he looks like a future NFLer. He's built kind of the right way, the way that you would want a player who's 6'6", 290 pounds, but an edge rusher to be built. He's got a really thick lower half, big legs, big glutes, and he is somebody who can explode off the line of scrimmage. Now, I will say this. He doesn't quite know what he's doing yet with a pass rush plan in his hands, but that natural strength for him is really showing up consistently this year. He's got a run defense grade of above 70 in each of the last 2 games, which is great to see. Notre Dame was the first one. McNeese State was his past game. So he's already sort of raised his floor in that regard. But then there are a couple of reps where once I started to know who he was and heard people talk about him, I went back and I watched some plays last year. 15% pass rush win percentage. Now, not a ton of production, but 15% pass rush win percentage. And I watched some of those reps. And dude, they are violent. I mean, the reps where he really decides what he wants to do before the snap, I watched him hit a couple of club rips on offensive tackles where he is just knocking them to the side, knocking their hands all the way around, cleanly getting around the outside shoulder, and then cornering pretty damn well for a player who's 290 pounds. And so, again, he's still figuring out the pass rush profile type of thing. You don't really know what he's doing yet in that area. But I've already seen so much of a baseline of what he could be as a run defender, and then the flashes of what he could be as a pass rusher. We're talking about a player who, he's not as dominant in the run game as a Trayvon Walker was yet, but he reminds me of Tyree Wilson and how the league saw Tyree Wilson and just said, length, strength, speed, I got to draft you in the first round.
Right.
And I don't know where Shamar Stewart is going to end up getting drafted. But again, after seeing him in person, I can absolutely tell you that the NFL is going to try to do everything they can to draft him in the top 60. And if he even keeps playing the same way that he played to start this season, I think he's a player that the NFL is going to pick somewhere in the second round because they've just got to take a chance on a guy who is built like this and can move like this. So Shamar Stewart from Texas A&M is my guy to jump from a day 3 player to a top 50 player this year.
Those are the best part about scouting trips when you get down there on the field and you just find players that you didn't have any idea of coming into, or you get a totally different perspective of them. And it's really cool to hear that, especially a group, Trevor, where like it's hard for a guy like that to stand out because there's so much damn talent in that freaking group,
right,
on their defensive line. It's insane.
And he's on the field all the time now. So let's give the people a name that they don't know right now, a name that you were able to kind of watch, a name that you kind of discovered right now that we haven't talked about through summer scouting or any time yet throughout this process.
Yeah, so someone we haven't mentioned on the show, Elijah Roberts. He's edge D-line SMU. I know SMU has him listed at 295.
Mm-hmm.
I think I saw Jim Nagy tweet that he's 275.
Ooh.
So that's a big difference.
Yeah,
either way.
it's quite the cut.
That is quite the... Let me see if I have him on a sheet here where... Yeah, and that's what 275 is the sheet I have for his verified weight. So either way, you get the point. He's somebody that kind of is that weird mold of, is he an edge player? Isn't he an interior player? Can he do both for SMU? And he's somebody that's not going to necessarily stand out. And he did have a good pass rushing year last year. He hasn't really gotten the pass rush going too much this year, but he had 3 massive plays stopping the run against BYU. One of them he forced a fumble, but the strength you could see this guy play with, which is the benefit of these tweener guys on your interior, because when you have bigger edge players, they could set the edge, they can kind of plow tight ends into the backfield, they can hold the point of attack against tackles. And then on the goal is, hey, say it's 3rd and long, we can kick him inside because we don't need him to 2-gap and be 2-run responsible. We'll pin his ears back and go. So Roberts is a really, really interesting player because he was at Miami he was a former 4-star. He was at Miami for 3 years. He never became a starter. He played in games, but he wasn't starting games. He wasn't overly productive. He transfers to SMU for his regular senior season in 2023, starts all 14 games. He has 10 sacks. He has a good season, right? Like, he's a very productive player. And now in 2024, his 5th year, he's kind of one of the guys for this team. And
just
like I said,
just one of the fellas,
one of the lads, one of the main lads. And his dirty work run defense is, something that I think can be NFL caliber. So wasn't on my radar at all this summer.
Mm-hmm.
Clearly going to be a part of the All-Star circuit, I think. and somebody that definitely deserves a shout on the show.
Hell yeah, love it. That's somebody that I got to watch for the
one
MDS.
of the lads, Elijah Roberts.
Just one of the lads. I mean, he's one of the lads. I got another one of the lads that I'm bringing up here in my name that I didn't know. I did not know this player before watching the USC versus LSU game, but you couldn't get one quarter through that game without hearing Kamari Ramsey's name, their safety, as if we needed more good safeties in this class. Connor, I'm not just talking about, oh yeah, hey, here's a fun name. I watched Kamari Ramsey's tape. I watched the LSU game. I can't remember whoever they just played, and then I watched a game from him last year. This is a top 50 player for me now.
Hello.
Dude, I really like Kamari Ramsey. He's a redshirt sophomore. He's at USC this year. He was at UCLA the last 2 years. Redshirted his first year, started all 11 games the year before. And you watch him, he's got tackling reliability. He closes downhill fast. He plays from single high, and I think he's got good range, and he's got good coverage instincts. I think he's sort of still working in that area. He's more confident when he's coming downhill, but I think he can develop into a really good free safety as well, because the anticipation for him being a redshirt sophomore already there for him, and I just feel like his game is so all around. He's not afraid to be physical. He's sort of, to me, when I watch him, he is a really great blend of having that athleticism to be able to match up against all different types of receivers, and also coming down and being physical. Normally, when you look at safeties, sometimes they will fill one box or the other. Ramsey truly is sort of a do-it-all guy in that regard, and I was really impressed with the slot coverage reps that he had, whether it was at the goal line, whether it was against tight ends, whatever. He was really covering guys very, very well, and super confidently. He reminded me of a little bit of like how I loved Javon Bullard last year. Just a tenacity, competitive player, will shut you down from the slot, will come down from depth and really help out in run defense. And he's a true slot defender, because we talked about this last year when we talked about some of the guys that could be like corner slot hybrids, safety slot hybrids. You can't just say, oh, this safety is a little bit smaller, let's play him in the slot. Or, oh, this corner is a little bit smaller, let's play him in the slot. When you are playing in the slot, you are physically playing closer to the line of scrimmage. You have to defend the run. You have to fit.
Hard hat.
And Kamari Ramsey is somebody who can do that, similar to like Bullard, who is somebody who I really liked in last year's class. So I just, again, as a redshirt sophomore, I'm so impressed with how Ramsey approaches the game in the couple of games that I've seen from him already. I think that him and his safety partner, Akili Arnold, are two really good players in this class. But Ramsey's ceiling, I think, is even higher than Arnold's, who I also liked going into the year. So it's one of the better safety tandems, especially draft-eligible tandems, that we have in college football so far early on in this season. And I'm excited to watch Ramsey throughout because, dude, this safety class, Malachi Starks, Kevin Winston Jr., Billy Bowman Jr., Sebastian Castro, Xavier Watts, Kamari Ramsey, Lathan Ransom, Xavier Wongpa, Keon Sabb, Akili Arnold, Dante Trader, Hunter Waller, Rod Moore, Nicky Wanmari. Like, this is, if you need a safety, this is the year, folks. This is the year. Last year, it felt like almost I don't want to say a barren wasteland, but like
it was rough.
The pickings were slim after you got past like Tyler Nubin, and maybe if you were in on Kalen Bullock and what he could do as a coverage defender, which Kalen Bullock already an interception here in the NFL in week 1, which you love to see it.
Yeah.
But like, this safety class is so different. So I know people like to talk about that, like to ask us about like that, like, oh, where's the strengths and weaknesses of this up and coming draft class? It almost could not be better at safety. You've got stars, you got players right behind them, you got depth players, and you got traitsy guys that maybe you're taking a chance on somewhere in day 3. You have all of these types of safeties in this class. So I love it.
Dude, it's crazy to add another talent like that. And I know he's an underclassman. He transferred from UCLA, which that's gotta hit different for USC when they get a great player from UCLA. But,
yeah. Coaching change, so I get it.
Right. It's just natural. It happens. And it's kind of a way for you to not go too far. But maybe he'll declare, maybe he won't at that young age, but it just goes to show you the depth of this group. It is always funny to me doing this as long as we have now, how classes come in waves. It's really
totally
weird.
Yeah.
It's really weird. I know wide receiver has been pretty steady, but we've had some, to steal your phrase, barren wasteland years at tackle.
Yeah.
And then last year, it felt like we had so many gifted tackles.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, last year, really for a while, we've been kind of picking through trying to find safeties. But this year, you don't have to pick too far. They're just right. There's so many talented safeties that can play a lot of different roles. So it's just funny to me.
Before we round out and we get out of here, I wanted to mention a couple of like sort of like stock down candidates, although I don't know if I fully want to say that they're totally stock down guys because it's only 2 weeks into college football. I think as the year goes on, there will be more of like trends. It's like, okay, yeah, this player is not trending in the right direction here this season, but early on, I feel like it's worth mentioning. We talked about Connor Wegman when we were going through the mock draft episode. Wegman, really bad Notre Dame game, really bad pocket management, just looked like he was just way too wound up, was not calm, was not trusting what he was seeing, was not trusting his own ability. It was just all over the place. So much hesitation in his game there. McNeese State, he only played the first half, and I thought he was fine. There were still like parts where he could have been a little bit more pinpoint, but there really wasn't a ton of opportunity for him to bounce back. They play Florida this week, and speaking of Florida, Graham Mertz, also probably somebody that I have to say, not great. Now, he played most of the Miami game. He got hurt with a concussion, but like,
is he gonna lose his job?
Huh?
Is he gonna lose his job?
I think the answer to that is probably, and that's not all on him. Although if he was playing the best version of himself that I thought we might see this year, it would be more difficult. But I feel like Napier might be coaching for his job very, very soon if he's not already. And I think the only way he really does that with a lot of weight is if their 5-star true freshman DJ Lagway actually plays, because we saw it this past weekend. But getting back to Mertz, the reason why I had Mertz as QB4 going into the season is because I love the way that he was able to protect the ball last year. And this year, I was like, I'm kind of betting on him now being better throwing deep down the field. That was Jaden Daniels' thing, right? Think about Jaden Daniels' first year when he was at LSU. He really mitigated the turnover-worthy plays. You could tell that is what he worked so hard on. And then he took that as a baseline, that new improved ability to take care of the football. And he then started to push it deep down the field. And we saw a Heisman Trophy from him last year because of it. Graham, even before he got hurt, had opportunities to push the ball deep down the field at a consistent and accurate rate, and he looked very poor doing that in their first game against Miami. So those were the big question marks I had with him going into the year anyways, and he did not really answer those at all whatsoever, even before getting hurt. So we'll see him again this season, but that was disappointing to see from both of those guys some of the high hopes that I had for them to hit the ground running this year. They really didn't do that. Then the only other one that I wanted to shout out is Oscar Delp. Really liked him from the tight end class going into the season, had him as tight end 2. He hasn't played poorly, but they're not giving him the football as a receiver. Remember, we went over the tight end episode, and I was like, hey, Brock Bowers is gone, and I actually liked Oscar Delp as a receiver when they went to him last year, but he's now getting out-snapped in the receiving game by Lawson Lucky already, their other tight end. So Delp was mainly their blocking tight end last year. I thought that was going to blossom into more of a full-time all-around tight end role this year, and it's just it's not. He's still their main blocking tight end, and I don't know how much work he's now going to get as a receiver this year either, which I'm kind of disappointed about. So I'm not really stocked down on him as a player, but the opportunity to sort of thrive and rise up the board as a tight end in this class, I don't know if it's going to exist for him this year.
That makes sense. It's a good call out too. It's just, you kind of look at roles on teams, and I know people have a lot of questions in the comments. We're going to do a lot of stock watch all year. Like, you want to hear more about Cam Ward. We get it. You want to hear about the Colorado guys, especially after a tough loss where things weren't going their way at all against Nebraska. Like, we tried to use this show, I think, today to talk about guys that we simply think could have got overlooked or we haven't talked about much yet, but we'll get into the front-facing names, especially as more NFL teams, their season starts to go sideways and you want to start attaching potential top talents to players and to teams.
Yeah, and we'll do this. We'll do this episode most weeks. I think we'll do a stock watch episode most weeks, and the way that this episode is going to achieve its full potential is if you guys help us out. You be our eyes and
Right.
ears as well throughout college football season. Let us know in the comments section who you think is a player who could jump from a day 3 pick to a top 50 pick. Whose stock is up? Whose stock is down? A name we have not heard of before. You guys are watching all sorts of college football like we are. So the more names that we have to really be able to dig into, even beyond what we could possibly see on a single college football Saturday from a single pair of eyes, that's going to help out the show, and it's going to make the show everything you guys want it to be. So let us know. The best way to do that, YouTube comment section, youtube.com/NFL Stock Exchange. Hit us up in the comments. If you are audio only, you could hit us up on Twitter and Instagram at Tampa Bay Trey, at Connor J. Rogers. But yeah, we'll keep rocking with these episodes. We'll keep coming up with new categories to be able to introduce guys and really be able to shape out the big board throughout the year and get you guys ready for whatever the end of the season big board is whenever we get there. Connor, you got anything else before we get out of here?
I'm excited for another episode this week. If you guys aren't aware, we're back to 2 a week. It's going to be awesome. And, a lot to react to from the NFL season kicking off, dude. It's going to be great. There's so much football right now. It's overwhelming. I'm trying to sort through how we attack each single thing, but this is a great starting point.
I think for most weeks, we'll probably let the first episode be a college football reaction type, like the stock watch type of thing. And as the NFL season goes on, maybe we'll bleed the stock watch episode into some NFL stuff. But the Wednesday episode this week, I want to focus a little bit more on the NFL. We could talk about some rookie performances, highlight some rookies. And then as the year goes on, obviously we will check in on team needs and the draft order as it starts to shape itself, teams that could be picking within the top 5, who they might be targeting, all the good stuff. So we think that would be the best way to do things for you guys, is sort of a college prospect stock market on a Monday, and then really digging into what's going on in the NFL in terms of a draft perspective on Wednesdays. If you guys like that, let us know. Make sure to do that in the comment section. But other than that, full steam ahead. NFL got kicked off. College got kicked off. I mean, it's all business now. No fun. Football?
Fun's over.
Oh, well, football is fun. No, it's not. Sure. What'd you say?
I said the yacht is docked.
The yacht is docked.
It's never been more over. It's actually raised out of the water.
It's in dry storage.
We are stapled to our office chairs, just grinding film and watching as many games as you could possibly watch.
You say that, but that's actually kind of what is happening.
It is truly, in the best way, a disgusting last 48 hours in my household. Because you got to realize, usually I'm not home on Sundays because I do Jets. I do pre and post game. It's really counting the commute and doing the show before the game and then sitting through the game and then after the game. It's a full day.
Right.
And some. So my wife had to realize, the Jets are on Monday night. I'm home Sunday. Wow, I got multi-view going from 1 o'clock sharp to watch all of these games. And I'm going to sit here straight through Sunday Night Football after we really just did this Saturday for college. Oh, and guess what? There was an NFL game in Brazil on Friday, and the NFL was on Thursday. And guess what? I'm working, and I'm gone all day tomorrow. So it is awesome. But man, is it a totally different lifestyle.
To quote Joe Buck, that is a disgusting act. We know that you guys are right there with us, though. That's why we love you listening to this show. We appreciate you listening.
I'm not leaving. Couch edition.
Yeah, I'm not the couch edition. I'm Trevor Sikkema. That is Connor Rogers. Thank you guys so much for watching and listening to the NFL Stock Exchange podcast. We'll see you guys on Wednesday.